I thought I knew my wife of 15 years better than anyone else in the world, until I found her second phone hidden in the flour canister. The same canister where she kept our emergency cash, the same place she'd told me she'd never trust anyone else to know about. If stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice served cold keep you up at night, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about trust. My name is David Martinez, and I'm a 45-year-old financial advisor living in suburban Phoenix with my wife Sarah and our twin daughters, Emma and Sophie, both 16. We built what everyone called the perfect American dream. A 4-bedroom house with a pool, 2 cars in the driveway, and a marriage that our friends envied. But perfection, as I was about to learn, is just another word for well-hidden secrets. Sarah had been working late more frequently at her marketing firm, claiming big clients and important presentations. She'd come home exhausted, barely touching dinner, always on her phone. I chalked it up to career ambition, the same drive that helped us afford our lifestyle. Then came the small changes that felt like earthquakes in hindsight. She started going to a new gym across town instead of our neighborhood one. New clothes appeared in her wardrobe, pieces I'd never seen her wear around me. When I complimented a stunning red dress hanging in our closet, she brushed it off, saying it was for client meetings. But what kind of client meeting required a dress that cost more than our mortgage payment? The phone calls became whispered conversations behind closed doors. Text messages she quickly flipped face down when I entered the room. And then there were the nights she'd claim to be asleep, but I'd catch the glow of her phone screen illuminating her face at 2 a.m. Who was so important that they demanded her attention in the depths of our marriage bed? The flour canister revelation came on a Tuesday morning when I was making pancakes for the girls. As I reached for the flour, my fingers brushed against something hard and unfamiliar. A sleek black iPhone, one I'd never seen before, with dozens of unread messages from someone saved as Client M. I didn't open it immediately. Some part of me knew that once I crossed that line, there would be no going back to the man who trusted blindly. But as Sarah hummed in the shower upstairs, getting ready for another late night at the office, I realized that man was already gone. The only question now was, what would I find? And more importantly, what would I do about it?
The first message I read made my hand shake so violently I nearly dropped the phone. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again tonight. Same hotel? But it was the response that destroyed me completely. I locked myself in my home office, the same room where Sarah and I used to plan our family vacations and discuss the girls' college funds. The irony wasn't lost on me as I scrolled through months of messages that painted a picture of a woman I no longer recognized. Client M turned out to be Marcus Rivera, the CEO of her biggest account. The messages started professional 6 months ago, then slowly shifted to personal. Compliments about her presentations became compliments about her appearance. Late-night strategy sessions became dinner dates. And then, 3 months ago, everything changed with a single message. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you, Sarah. Her response haunted me. I know. I feel it too. My husband is a good man, but he's not you. He doesn't see me the way you do. The casual dismissal of our 15 years together, reduced to calling me merely a good man, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. But the messages revealed more than just an affair. They revealed a complete alternate life. Sarah had been telling Marcus that our marriage was loveless, that we were staying together only for the girls. She painted me as controlling, boring, someone who'd given up on dreams. The woman in these messages complained about our suburban life, called our friends provincial, and fantasized about starting over somewhere exciting. The final piece of evidence came in a photo thread from last weekend, the same weekend Sarah claimed to be at a company retreat. Instead of team-building exercises, I saw intimate photos of her and Marcus in what looked like a luxury resort in Sedona. She wore the red dress I'd complimented, the one meant for client meetings. As I reached the most recent messages, I realized Sarah wasn't just cheating. She and Marcus were planning their exit strategy. After the holidays, one message read, "I'll tell David I want a divorce. Marcus has already talked to his lawyer about the cleanest way to handle the transition." They had mapped out my destruction like a business proposal, complete with timelines and contingency plans. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd left me time to prepare. And if there's one thing 15 years as a financial advisor had taught me, it's that preparation and patience can turn any disadvantage into devastating leverage. They wanted to play games with my life? Fine. But they were about to learn that some games have consequences they never saw coming.
When I hired a private investigator, I thought I'd already discovered the worst of Sarah's betrayal. I was wrong. What Detective Rachel Morrison uncovered in just 1 week made the affair look like child's play. Detective Morrison came highly recommended by my lawyer friend, James Chen. A former police officer turned private investigator, she specialized in matrimonial cases with what she called complex financial implications. I hired her to document the affair, thinking I needed evidence for divorce proceedings. "Mr. Martinez," she said during our meeting at a discreet coffee shop downtown, "your wife is involved in something much bigger than adultery." She slid a manila folder across the table, her expression grave. "Your joint accounts have been systematically drained over the past 6 months, small amounts, carefully timed to avoid triggering bank alerts." The financial records showed a pattern of deception I never could have imagined. Sarah had been transferring money to accounts I'd never seen, using her access to our business savings for what appeared to be investments in Marcus's company. But these weren't legitimate business transactions. They were funding a new life she was building without me. Morrison's surveillance revealed the true extent of their relationship. They weren't just meeting for hotel encounters. They were apartment hunting in Dallas, where Marcus was planning to relocate his business. Sarah had already interviewed for positions with 3 different marketing firms there, using fake references and claiming to be single. She'd gone so far as to rent a P.O. box in Texas and redirect mail about these job applications. But the most devastating discovery came from their communication patterns. Morrison had uncovered a group chat that included Marcus's divorce attorney, Sarah's sister Jennifer, and 2 other couples who were apparently in on the plan. They were all discussing how to minimize my claim to assets, how to establish grounds for divorce that would favor Sarah, and most chillingly, how to frame me as an unfit father. "There's one more thing, Mr. Martinez," Morrison said, her voice careful. "Your wife has been documenting incidents between you two that never happened. She's building a case for emotional abuse, complete with photographs of bruises that she's inflicted on herself." As I sat in my car after that meeting, staring at photos of my wife photographing her own self-inflicted injuries in our bathroom mirror, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my marriage or my assets. I was fighting for my freedom and my relationship with my daughters. Sarah wasn't just leaving me, she was systematically destroying me. But she'd made one critical error. She underestimated the man she married. The same attention to detail that made me successful in finance would now be turned against her. The investigation was over. The preparation for war had begun.
When I finally told my brother-in-law Mike about Sarah's affair, his response shocked me more than the betrayal itself. "David, I've been waiting 3 years for you to figure this out." It turned out I wasn't as alone as Sarah thought. Mike had married Sarah's younger sister Jennifer 5 years ago, and I'd always considered him family. But as we sat in his garage workshop, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and motor oil, he revealed that Jennifer had been feeding information to Sarah about their divorce plans, completely unaware of the depth of Sarah's deception. "Jennifer's been struggling with this for months," Mike said, his jaw tight with anger. "Sarah convinced her that you were having an affair first, that you'd become controlling and possessive. She asked Jennifer to help her gather evidence of your wrongdoing. But Jennifer started questioning things when Sarah asked her to lie about dates and times. Jennifer had been Sarah's alibi for numerous occasions, girls' nights that were actually hotel meetings, shopping trips that were apartment hunting expeditions, and family emergencies that were weekend getaways with Marcus.
But Jennifer's natural honesty had started catching Sarah in contradictions, making her question everything her sister had told her about our marriage. Mike's revelation opened floodgates I hadn't expected. Jennifer wasn't the only one Sarah had manipulated. She'd been systematically turning family members against me by feeding them false stories about our relationship. My own mother-in-law, whom I'd always gotten along with, had been cold to me for months because Sarah had told her I was controlling the family finances and isolating Sarah from her family. But Sarah's manipulation campaign had backfired in ways she never anticipated. My father-in-law, Robert, had grown suspicious when Sarah asked him to co-sign on what she claimed was a surprise investment account for our anniversary. A retired accountant himself, he'd done his due diligence and discovered the account was being used to funnel money to Marcus's business ventures. "David, we've all been comparing notes," Mike said, pulling out his phone to show me a group text with Jennifer, Robert, and Sarah's brother Kevin. "She's been playing us all against each other, but her stories don't add up. We know about the apartment in Dallas, the job interviews, everything, and we're done being manipulated." As I left Mike's house that night, I realized Sarah's greatest strength, her ability to manipulate people through emotional appeals, had become her greatest weakness. She'd overplayed her hand, involved too many people in her deception, and underestimated their intelligence and loyalty. Her own family members were now my greatest allies in the war she'd started. She wanted to isolate me, but instead she'd isolated herself. The student was about to become the master, and the lesson I was preparing to teach would be one she'd never forget.
While Sarah slept peacefully next to me, dreaming of her new life with Marcus, I spent 3 sleepless nights building an impenetrable financial fortress that would leave her with nothing but the clothes on her back. She'd taught me well. Betrayal was an art form, and I was about to become a master. My years in financial planning had taught me that money flows like water. It follows the path of least resistance and pools where it's safest. Sarah had been redirecting our streams without permission. Now it was time to build dams she never saw coming. Working with James Chen, my lawyer friend who specialized in asset protection, I began systematically securing everything Sarah thought she could claim. The joint accounts she'd been draining, I moved those funds into an irrevocable trust with Emma and Sophie as beneficiaries, legally removing Sarah's access while ensuring our daughter's college funds remained intact. Sarah's signature had been required for major transactions, but small, consistent transfers to the trust fell well below the threshold requiring her approval. But the real masterstroke came in restructuring our business assets. The investment portfolio Sarah thought was worth $500,000 had been quietly transferred to a shell company I'd established 6 months earlier, coincidentally right around the time her late nights started increasing. The company existed solely to hold our investments, and Sarah had unknowingly signed the paperwork during one of her distracted evenings, thinking she was approving routine financial updates. The house presented a more complex challenge. Sarah's name was on the deed, but the mortgage was structured in a way that made me the primary financial responsible party. Working with a forensic accountant, we documented every improvement and payment I'd made from my individual income over our marriage. The pool, the renovated kitchen, the finished basement, all could be traced back to my earnings, not our joint funds. Most satisfying was securing her prized possession, the BMW she'd been driving to her secret meetings with Marcus. The car loan was in my name exclusively, and I'd been making payments from my individual checking account. Sarah had assumed it was a gift, but legally it was my property. She'd been driving my car to betray me, and soon she'd discovered that privilege was about to be revoked. The final piece of my financial fortress was the most elegant. Sarah's beloved marketing firm had been hemorrhaging money due to her divided attention between work and her affair. Marcus's company owed her firm nearly $200,000 in unpaid invoices, money he'd been withholding while funding their affair with the cash he saved by not paying his bills. I quietly purchased her firm's debt portfolio at a significant discount, making me Marcus's creditor. As Sarah stirred next to me that night, murmuring Marcus's name in her sleep, I reviewed my work one final time. Every asset secured, every legal loophole closed, every financial advantage protected. She'd spent 6 months planning to destroy my life, but I'd spent 3 weeks ensuring that when the dust settled, she'd be left with nothing but the truth about the man she'd chosen over her family. The foundation of her new life was built on lies and stolen money, and I was about to demolish it brick by brick.
Sarah insisted on hosting Thanksgiving dinner for both our families, claiming she wanted to bring everyone together during difficult times. She had no idea she was setting the stage for her own public unmasking. The dining room had never looked more beautiful. Sarah had spent days preparing, using our finest china, arranging elaborate centerpieces, and planning a menu that would impress both families. She moved through the preparations with manic energy, constantly checking her phone for messages from Marcus, who was spending the holiday with his own family, blissfully unaware of what was about to unfold. 22 people gathered around our extended dining table. My parents, Sarah's parents, her siblings and their families, and several close friends who'd become like family over the years. Sarah played the perfect hostess, charming everyone with stories about her successful marketing campaigns and our stronger-than-ever marriage. She even toasted our upcoming 20th anniversary, looking directly at me with eyes that sparkled with deception. But I'd prepared a different kind of feast. Hidden in my study were manila envelopes for each family member, containing carefully selected evidence of Sarah's betrayal, bank statements showing the drained accounts, photos from the private investigator documenting her hotel meetings, screenshots of text messages planning her escape to Dallas, and for Sarah's parents, a special gift, the documentation showing how she'd used their name as references for her secret job applications. During dessert, as Sarah basked in compliments about her pumpkin pie, I stood up to make what everyone expected to be a grateful husband's toast. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Family means everything to me, and I've learned so much about the importance of honesty and loyalty this year." Sarah smiled adoringly, raising her glass. She had no idea that Detective Morrison was positioned outside with additional evidence, or that James Chen was recording everything from the living room. But the real surprise was waiting for my signal in the study, Marcus's wife, Patricia, whom I'd contacted the previous week. "Before we finish our meal, I think it's important that we all understand what we're truly thankful for. Patricia Rivera, Marcus's wife." Patricia came out of study towards us. Everyone was confused. I said, "Patricia has something she'd like to share with us all." Sarah's fork clattered to her plate as Patricia came. She came holding printouts of every message between Sarah and her husband. The silence that followed Patricia's revelation was deafening. Sarah's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and absolute terror as she realized her carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time. Family members opened their envelopes, gasps and angry murmurs filling the room as the evidence spoke for itself. Sarah tried to run, but Jennifer blocked her path, her own betrayal by her sister written across her face. "You made me lie for you. You made us all accomplices to destroying a good man." The dinner was over, but the lesson was just beginning.
Within 48 hours of Thanksgiving dinner, Sarah's entire world began collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. But I was just getting started. Every domino I'd positioned over the past month was finally ready to fall. Saturday morning, Sarah sat in our living room surrounded by suitcases, her phone buzzing incessantly with calls from family members demanding explanations. She'd aged 10 years in 2 days, her polished exterior cracked beyond repair. Marcus hadn't returned her calls since Patricia confronted him.
And the apartment in Dallas she'd been so excited about was now an impossible dream. But the social humiliation was only the beginning. Monday morning brought the first wave of professional consequences. Patricia Rivera had wasted no time sharing Sarah's messages with Marcus's business partners, many of whom had wives that worked in Phoenix's tight-knit marketing community. Sarah's reputation as a trustworthy professional evaporated overnight, replaced by whispers about the woman who destroyed a marriage and embezzled money from joint accounts. The marketing firm Sarah worked for faced their own crisis. 3 major clients canceled their contracts after learning about Sarah's affair with Marcus, the same Marcus who owed the company $200,000. Sarah's boss, Linda, called an emergency meeting where she presented Sarah with a choice: resign immediately or face a termination and a potential lawsuit for compromising client relationships through personal conduct. Marcus's empire crumbled even faster than Sarah's. His business partners, horrified by the scandal and the debt irregularities Patricia had uncovered, initiated a hostile takeover of his company. The man who'd promised Sarah a fresh start in Dallas couldn't even guarantee his own financial survival. His wife's divorce attorney had already frozen his assets, and the IRS was now investigating the creative accounting practices he'd used to fund his affair. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source: Emma and Sophie. My daughters, now fully aware of their mother's betrayal through the family grapevine, had made their own decision about where their loyalties lay. Emma's words cut deeper than any private investigator's report. "Mom, you didn't just cheat on Dad. You cheated on us. You were planning to move to Dallas and tear our family apart for some guy. How could you?" The final domino fell when Sarah's sister Jennifer filed for divorce from Mike, but not for the reason anyone expected. Jennifer had discovered that Mike had secretly known about Sarah's affair for months, but said nothing, making him complicit in the deception that had torn their family apart. As I watched Sarah load her belongings into her car, preparing to move in with her parents, the only family members still speaking to her, I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness for how completely she'd destroyed herself. She'd gained nothing and lost everything: her husband, her daughter's respect, her career, her lover, and now even her sister. The lesson was complete, but the price she'd paid for learning it was higher than even I had anticipated. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply allowing someone's choices to reveal their true character to the world.
When Sarah's divorce attorney first saw the evidence I'd compiled, he actually laughed and said, "Mrs. Martinez, I've never seen someone document their own destruction this thoroughly." But Sarah's response shocked everyone in that conference room. The mediation session was held in James Chen's office, with Sarah's attorney, David Kowalski, trying desperately to salvage something from the wreckage of her choices. Sarah sat across from me looking defiant, still believing she could manipulate her way out of consequences. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing her victim narrative, painting herself as a woman trapped in a loveless marriage who'd finally found happiness. "My client was emotionally abandoned," Kowalski began, opening Sarah's prepared statement. "Mr. Martinez focused solely on financial success while neglecting his wife's emotional needs. The relationship with Mr. Rivera was a response to years of feeling invisible in her own marriage." He slid photographs across the table. The same self-inflicted bruise photos Detective Morrison had discovered, now being presented as evidence of my alleged abuse. But James was ready. He calmly opened his laptop and projected the surveillance footage Morrison had captured of Sarah photographing her own injuries in our bathroom mirror. The timestamp showed her practicing facial expressions, testing different angles, and carefully documenting marks she'd made on herself. Kowalski's face went white
as he realized his client had made him complicit in attempted perjury. The financial evidence was equally damning. Forensic accountants had traced every dollar Sarah had diverted, every forged signature on investment transfers, and every fraudulent transaction. The $180,000 she'd moved to fund her new life with Marcus wasn't just marital assets. $75,000 had come from Emma and Sophie's college funds, money that had been specifically designated for their future. Sarah's desperation became evident as the evidence mounted. She accused me of hiring hackers to access her phone, claimed the private investigator had trespassed on private property, and insisted that her relationship with Marcus was purely professional. But when James presented the hotel receipts charged to her company credit card, funds that technically belonged to her business partners, even Kowalski realized the case was hopeless. The breaking point came when James revealed the final piece of evidence. Marcus had been recording their conversations for months, planning to use Sarah's insider information about her company's clients to steal their business. The man she'd destroyed her marriage for had been using her from the beginning, and she'd unknowingly helped him commit corporate espionage. Sarah's defiance crumbled as she listened to Marcus's voice explaining to his business partner how the desperate housewife was feeding him confidential client information without realizing it. She'd been played by an expert manipulator who saw her as nothing more than a useful fool. The divorce settlement reflected her complete defeat. No alimony, no claim to assets she helped deplete, and supervised visitation with the daughters who'd lost all respect for her. Justice wasn't blind. It saw everything, including the truth about the woman who'd tried to destroy an innocent man's life.
3 months after the divorce was finalized, Sarah showed up at my office unannounced, looking like a woman who'd aged a decade in a single season. Her first words weren't an apology. They were a threat that would backfire more spectacularly than anything she'd done before. Sarah had lost weight. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, and the confident woman who'd once commanded boardrooms now looked defeated and hollow. She'd been living with her parents since the divorce, unable to find work in Phoenix's marketing industry where everyone knew her story. Marcus had disappeared entirely, last seen fleeing to California to avoid his own legal troubles. "David, I need money," she said without preamble, settling into the chair across from my desk. "The girls want to visit me, but I can't even afford an apartment. You got everything. The house, the savings, the business accounts. It's not fair. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to be destitute." Her voice carried the same manipulative tone she'd once used to convince me to trust her completely. But her proposal revealed that Sarah had learned nothing from her downfall. She wanted me to co-sign a loan for her apartment, claiming the girls needed a stable environment for visitation. She suggested I give her a settlement from my individual retirement account, framing it as an investment in our daughter's emotional well-being. Most audaciously, she asked me to write a letter of recommendation for her job applications, vouching for her integrity and professional conduct. When I politely declined each request, Sarah's mask slipped entirely. "You think you're so righteous," she hissed. "But you destroyed more than just our marriage. You turned my own children against me. You ruined my career. You made my family choose sides. That's not justice. That's cruelty." Her desperation was morphing into the same entitlement that had justified her affair in the first place. The conversation took a darker turn when Sarah revealed her true purpose for coming. She'd been in contact with a tabloid journalist who specialized in wronged wives stories, planning to paint herself as a victim of financial abuse and emotional manipulation. "I can make this story about a controlling husband who used his financial expertise to destroy his wife for seeking happiness," she threatened. I smiled and picked up my desk phone, dialing a familiar number. "Detective Morrison? Could you come up to my office? Mrs. Martinez is here making threats about false media stories."
Sarah's face went white as she realized I'd been recording our entire conversation, and that making false accusations to media outlets about a documented court case could constitute defamation and harassment. As Detective Morrison escorted Sarah from the building, I felt a profound sense of closure. She'd had one final opportunity to show remorse, to acknowledge the pain she'd caused, to begin rebuilding relationships with her daughters. Instead, she'd chosen to double down on manipulation and threats. Some people are incapable of learning from consequences, no matter how severe. Sarah would have to live with the life she'd chosen, while I would continue building the life she'd tried to destroy. The lesson was complete, and this time, there would be no second chances.
2 years later, as I watched Emma graduate as valedictorian and Sophie receive her college acceptance letter, I realized that Sarah's betrayal hadn't destroyed our family. It had revealed who we really were when everything else was stripped away. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, without the undercurrent of deception that had poisoned our home for years. Emma and Sophie had grown into remarkable young women, their resilience and integrity forged through navigating their mother's betrayal. They visited Sarah occasionally, but their relationship remained strained by her refusal to take genuine responsibility for her choices. Building a new life as a single father in my late 40s brought unexpected challenges and surprising joys. The girls and I had grown closer through shared adversity, our family dinners filled with genuine laughter instead of polite conversation. We'd developed new traditions, weekend hiking trips, cooking lessons, and honest discussions about relationships and integrity that Sarah's presence would never have allowed. My business had thrived in unexpected ways. The meticulousness I'd applied to protecting my assets during the divorce had earned me a reputation among attorneys as someone who could help their clients navigate complex financial situations. I'd inadvertently built a specialty practice in asset protection and divorce financial planning, helping other men and women prepare for the unthinkable. The community response had equally been unexpected. Rather than being viewed as the bitter ex-husband, I'd gained respect for how I'd handled Sarah's betrayal with dignity and strategic thinking. Men would approach me at social events, sharing their own suspicions about their marriages, asking for advice on protecting their families from similar destruction. But the most profound change was internal. The man who'd trusted blindly had been replaced by someone who verified carefully but loved deeply. When I eventually began dating again, I brought a wisdom earned through pain, the ability to recognize authentic character and genuine intentions. The final validation came from an unexpected source. Marcus Rivera, now working as a sales clerk after his business empire collapsed, sent me a handwritten letter. "You were the man Sarah claimed you weren't. I see now why she had to destroy you in her own mind. She knew she was trading gold for fool's pyrite." As I stood in my backyard watching Emma and Sophie plan their college futures, I understood that Sarah's betrayal had been a gift disguised as a curse. She'd forced me to discover strengths I never knew I possessed, to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than blind trust, and to appreciate the family members who stood by truth rather than convenience. The man she'd tried to destroy had become someone stronger, wiser, and genuinely happier than the man she'd married 20 years earlier. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, surrounded by people who choose you every day, rather than those who stay out of obligation.